I found a shoebox in my father's closet after he died, and it contained a secret that destroyed my family. My father was a quiet man. He worked at a hardware store for 42 years, came home at exactly 5:30 every evening, and spent his weekends fixing things around the house that were never broken. He didn't drink, didn't yell, didn't talk much at all. I loved him, but I never really knew him. When he died of a heart attack last March, I was the one who had to clean out his house. My mother had passed 5 years earlier, and I'm an only child. The responsibility fell entirely on me. I spent 3 weeks sorting through a lifetime of accumulated objects, old tax returns, yellowed newspapers, tools organized with obsessive precision, sweaters my mother had knitted before her hands gave out. It was sad, but not surprising. Everything was exactly as I expected, until I found the shoebox. It was tucked behind a loose panel in the back of his closet, a hiding spot I only discovered because I was tearing out the shelving to repaint the walls. The box was an old Nike container, the cardboard soft with age. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them. All of the same woman. She was beautiful, with dark curly hair and a smile that seemed to radiate warmth. In some photos she was alone, standing in front of landmarks I didn't recognize. In others, she was holding a baby. In a few, she was standing next to my father, his arm around her waist. His expression one of pure, unguarded happiness. An expression I had never seen on his face in my entire life. On the back of one photo, in my father's handwriting, was a name. Clara, 1987. And beneath it, a single word that made my hands tremble. Always. I confronted my aunt, my father's younger sister, the only surviving relative from his generation. I showed her the photos and demanded to know who Clara was. My aunt looked at the images and her face went pale. She sat down heavily at her kitchen table and told me everything. My father had been engaged before he met my mother. Her name was Clara Reyes. She was a nurse, an immigrant from the Philippines, and by all accounts the love of my father's life. They met in 1985 when he was 26 and she was 24. They dated for 2 years, got engaged, and planned a wedding for the spring of 1988. Then, in the fall of 1987, Clara vanished. She left for work one morning and never came home. The police investigated. They searched her apartment, interviewed her co-workers, dragged the river. Nothing. No body, no clues, no answers. The case went cold. My father was devastated. He spent months looking for her, spending money he didn't have on private investigators, plastering the city with missing posters. Eventually, his family convinced him to move on. He met my mother a year later. They married in 1990. I was born in 1992. But here is where the story turned dark. My aunt, her voice trembling, told me something that made my blood run cold. 2 weeks before Clara disappeared, she had confided in a friend that she was pregnant. My father was the father. She was going to tell him on the night she vanished. She never got the chance. I sat in my aunt's kitchen, staring at the photo of Clara holding a baby, and I realized the baby in the picture was not just any baby. The timeline didn't add up for the child to be my father's unless Clara had given birth before she disappeared, which meant the baby in the photo was not Clara's child. It was someone else's. I asked my aunt whose baby it was. She didn't know. She had never seen the photo before. She didn't know Clara was holding a child in any of these images. Neither did the police. My father had never shared these photos. I became obsessed. I hired a genealogist, a former detective, anyone who could help me trace Clara Reyes and the baby in the photographs. It took 6 months and most of my savings, but I found something. Clara Reyes had a sister. Her name was Lorna. She was still alive, living in a small town in Nevada. I flew out to meet her. Lorna was in her 70s now, frail and soft-spoken, with eyes that held decades of grief. When I showed her the photographs, she wept. She told me Clara had indeed been pregnant when she disappeared. But the baby in the photo was not hers. The baby was Lorna's. Her first child, born in 1987, a boy named Mateo. Clara had been holding her nephew in those photos. She often babysat for Lorna while she worked. I felt a strange mix of relief and disappointment. The baby was not some secret child my father had hidden from us. But then Lorna said something that brought everything crashing down again. She said the police had a suspect in Clara's disappearance. A man who had been stalking her for months before she vanished. A man she had reported multiple times, but nothing was ever done. His name was Robert. Robert Calloway. My father's best friend. My godfather. Robert Calloway was a fixture of my childhood. He came to every birthday party, every Thanksgiving dinner, every family gathering. He taught me how to fish. He gave me my first pocket knife. He was the best man at my parents' wedding. When my father was dying in the hospital, Robert was at his bedside, holding his hand. And all along, he had been the prime suspect in the disappearance of the woman my father truly loved. I confronted Robert at his home. He was 82 now, living alone in a retirement community, a shadow of the man I once knew. When I said Clara's name, his expression shattered. He didn't deny it. He confessed everything. He had been obsessed with Clara from the moment my father introduced them. He watched her, followed her, sent her letters. When she threatened to expose him, he panicked. He went to her apartment the night she disappeared, intending to convince her to stay silent. They argued. He grabbed her. She fell. He buried her body in a wooded area that has since been paved over for a shopping mall. He has lived with the guilt for 37 years. He told my father a week after Clara vanished that he had seen her get into a car with an unknown man, sending the investigation in a completely wrong direction. He stood beside my father as he grieved, pretending to comfort him, all while knowing exactly where Clara was. Robert is in prison now. He pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter. He will die there. But the damage he did extends far beyond Clara's death. My father spent his whole life loving a woman who was taken from him by his closest friend. He married my mother, built a family, lived a quiet life, but I now know that a part of him was always with Clara. The shoebox was proof. The word always, on the back of that photo. He never stopped loving her. My mother must have sensed it. She must have felt the distance, the silence, the way he looked at nothing sometimes. I think that's why she threw herself into her knitting, her garden, her small distractions. She was competing with a ghost. And my father, the quiet man who fixed things that weren't broken, was himself the most broken thing of all. He carried a secret for 37 years. Not Clara's secret. Robert's. He knew his best friend was the suspect. He knew, and he did nothing. He chose silence over justice. He chose to protect the man who had destroyed him. I found a letter at the bottom of the shoebox. It was from my father, addressed to me, dated 2 weeks before he died. It read, "I know you'll find this eventually. You were always the curious one. I'm sorry I never told you about Clara. I'm sorry I never told you about Robert. I thought I could bury it. I thought if I just kept quiet and kept moving, the truth would stay buried with me. But you deserve to know. Your mother deserved better. Clara deserved better. I was a coward. I was afraid that if the truth came out, I would lose Robert too, and then I would have lost everyone. So I said nothing. I let him stand beside me at my wedding. I let him hold you when you were born. I let him be family. And I have hated myself every single day for it. Please don't make the same mistakes I did. Don't let silence be your refuge. Don't protect the people who hurt you. And don't spend your life loving a ghost." I read the letter sitting on the floor of my father's empty house, the shoebox beside me, the afternoon light fading through the windows. I cried for a long time. Not just for Clara, not just for my mother, not just for the father I never really knew. I cried for the man who spent 42 years selling hammers and nails, who came home every day at 5:30, who fixed things that weren't broken because he couldn't fix the one thing that was. I still have the shoebox. I keep it in my own closet now. Sometimes I take it out and look at the photo of Clara, at her radiant smile, at the life she should have lived. And I think about my father's letter, his final confession, his desperate hope that I would be better than him. I'm trying. I tell my wife I love her every day, even when it's hard. I tell my children about my mistakes, even when it's embarrassing. I don't let silence build walls between me and the people I care about. Because I know what those walls cost. I saw it in my father's eyes every day of my childhood. I just didn't know what it was. Now I do. And some things, once you know them, you can never unlearn.